house. So as I think I mentioned in the last episode, I was really excited prepping for our big giant house party. I like dug a fire pit and all sorts of stuff like that. And then, you know, Liz was super busy trying to balance what she was doing with work, with like preparing the house. And I had a bunch of stuff going on the evenings before the house party. So that was all crazy, like the VR stuff that you might have heard about or haven't heard about yet. But then the Friday night before the house party on Saturday, where there was a ton more stuff to do and I really wanted to, you know, figure out how all that was going to work, something kind of terrible happened. I lost my car keys. I had my car keys on the train that morning. I used my little city bike key fob, bike to work. At lunch on that Friday, I went over to Bravo Media to talk about, you know, the current state of the app and what I was going to try to do with it over the weekend. And I noticed when I was going up there for lunch, like, oh yeah, because I usually bike up there, even though it's only, you know, 9 blocks away. But I was like, yeah, I can't find my keys, huh? And then it got to the end of the day, and I was like, oh, I still don't see my keys, and I genuinely have no idea what happened to them. The closest thing I can guess is that maybe they were in a pocket. We've got this like beige coat that Liz and I got at the tag sale a few weeks ago, nice little beige coat, and I had my keys in there, possibly, and then because the pockets are shallow, maybe they fell out while I was biking. I have no idea. I called City Bike and said, you know, is there any chance that someone has tried to use my City Bike key today? And they said no. Maybe it fell down a grate. Maybe someone took the keys and had no idea what the City Bike thing was and didn't care. Maybe no one cared. Maybe someone found the keys and threw them away. I don't know. But it meant that I was coming home Friday night and I was like, crap, I can't do anything with the Mazda because I also lost the spare key for it a few weeks ago. It's one of my worst faults, is that I can do something like what I did a few weeks ago, where I had the spare key for the Mazda and I said, okay, I need to put this somewhere obvious where Liz is going to find it, or I'm going to give it to Liz and it's going to be really clear and obvious. And then I put it somewhere, and I have no idea where I put it. I haven't seen it since. So yeah, both keys for the Mazda just gone. So there's the car parked in the Peekskill parking lot, and I'm thinking, like, I don't know what to do. Is there a way a locksmith can do this? And I called a few different locksmiths, got quoted at, you know, upwards of $200 to build a new key. And then there's, you know, it's a Mazda 3 2005 that requires a transponder. Transponders are nightmares, especially in the early days of when Mazda was doing that, because they didn't really understand the most efficient or the best way to do it. So all the locksmiths were like, oh, I don't really know what to tell you. But I did finally get an appointment by the end of the day Friday, where they told me that first thing in the morning on Saturday, right around the time we were going to be picking up people for the party, they were going to send someone over and they were going to fix it. And that sounded great. Spoiler alert, fast forward to Saturday, I got a call when someone was supposed to be there from, this was like some company like 1-800-Locksmiths or something like that, that said, oh, yeah, we don't actually service your area. And it's like, why didn't you tell me that when I first called you? So that became ridiculous. My wife would also like me to clarify that not only did they not come, not only did they call us after they were already supposed to be there, this was after I had already called them Friday night to confirm that the appointment was set up, and then, you know, when they were like 5 minutes late on Saturday morning, I'd called again just to be like, is someone on their way? And they said, yes, we see you have an appointment, they're on their way. And it was like after they had been 15 minutes late that they called to say, oh yeah, no one's coming, we don't service your area. It definitely added a layer of stress to Friday and Saturday, because we still had, you know, a ton of food to make and a ton of preparations to do around the house, setting up things. I wanted to mow the lawn, just a ton of chores that we were really hoping we could get done before we started bringing people over around 11 a.m. on Saturday. And because the Mazda was stuck at the Peekskill train station, that meant that both Liz and I had to go down in the Pathfinder to try to pick people up, which also became kind of difficult because there were too many people, so we had to do some illegal things with people in the back of the car. And on the way down, we actually saw a cop, so we're like, okay, we can't go back that way, because what if the cop sees us? So that became, you know, in retrospect, like, haha, what a silly kind of college thing to do, but at the time was, you know, kind of stressful. So I tried to focus during the day on Saturday on, like, you know what, we're gonna have a great time, it's gonna be a lot of fun, I'm sure everything with the car will work out somehow, don't fixate on it. And I mean, yeah, I'll fast forward a little bit. What ended up happening with the car was I ended up getting a locksmith on Monday while I was at work, who actually was able to come in with like some other kind of Mazda transponder, and he wasn't able to get any kind of key to work because the transponder was too far away from where it needed to be or something like that, and he was about to give up, and then he had kind of an interesting epiphany, which basically resulted in him taping the responder next to the ignition slot. And he found that once he had done that, then he could just use any old key, like any, you know, flat silver, you know, duplicate car key, and then it would work. And what's kind of great about that, you know, as very redneck and hacked as it is that it means that now if I want to make a bunch of Mazda keys, it's only going to cost me $3 a key to make instead of $70 a key, which, you know, even if I have the right cut and all that. That's how much a Mazda key with a transponder takes. So anyway, the Mazda stuff all kind of worked out there, except for yesterday when all within the same car trip I started to hear the undercarriage of the Mazda sounding a little bit loose, and then on the way back up the hill last night after going to our baby class, the muffler just fell off. Luckily it was close to the house, so it was easy to go and get, but that was kind of ridiculous. And then I guess, I want to talk about all the house party stuff, but just to finish up car things, so that happened while the Pathfinder was at the mechanic. The Pathfinder, by the way, we had just changed the tire on it earlier in the week, so that was a new thing. Liz and I working together to change the tire. The previous owner hadn't actually left all the parts for the hydraulic, lift to lift the car before, so we actually ended up borrowing from our neighbors, and that all was great, and that all worked out. And Liz and I changed the tire, and we're like, yeah, we're awesome. But then, yeah, we started to hear like a grinding in the Pathfinder, so we brought that to the shop Saturday morning, and this Saturday, yesterday, and that was when stuff started to go wrong with the Mazda. So then, because we needed to do more stuff and didn't want to be driving around without a muffler in the Mazda, it was like, okay, can we go back to the shop and drop off the Mazda and take the Pathfinder back? Because they gave us a big list of all the stuff that needs to be done with the Pathfinder, and it's a long list, so we're gonna have to figure out how we can afford that. To top all those things off, we unfortunately missed out on a fantastic opportunity to get a really good deal on a like 2005 Suzuki Sonata or something, like a Pathfinder-esque car that someone on our road was selling very cheaply. It only had 50,000 miles on it, and the only reason we were hesitating is we were like, oh, well, that's a pretty similar car to the Pathfinder. That shouldn't have stopped us. Like, it was a good enough deal. We should have just gotten it. There were only 50,000 miles on it. Our Pathfinder right now has 200,000. We should have just gotten that car and figured out what we were going to do with the Pathfinder after that. And now we're probably just gonna have to pay for all the repairs on the Pathfinder. The Mazda I still think we could probably sell. Hopefully we'll get a Subaru Forester from Liz's mom's office, which has like a company car that way that they're trying to sell. Anyway, there's some car stuff. Now let's talk about the house party. It was really fantastic. The day ended up being beautiful. It was kind of the opposite of what happened with Liz and I's wedding, where approaching the wedding I kept checking the weather report, and it started off like, 60% chance of sun, and then each day it was like, more cloudy, maybe a small chance of rain, and then obviously, it poured, like friggin' poured the entire day during the wedding. Whereas here, it started out where there was like a 90% chance of rain for the Saturday, and each day it actually became like a slightly less percentage, and what actually ended up happening on Saturday was it trickled a little bit during the morning, and then it was beautiful and sunny and warm and gorgeous the entire day. And so, Morgan came over Friday night, which is great because Saturday, June 6th, is both his birthday and my birthday. We're exactly the same age. I think we're like born 2 hours apart, and he helped out with, the cooking and all the prep that we could do beforehand. So the evening was full of, cutting fruit and prepping dishes and trying to make everything ready. And Liz, of course, had like birthday things that she wanted to do that she didn't want us to see. So that was kind of secretive, and we had to be in different rooms. And then I wanted to do some last minute preparations with the fire pit. And Saturday morning, before we went over in our first run to pick up people, I wanted to mow the lawn. And this lawnmower, which I had fixed a couple weeks ago and was so proud of, it won't start anymore, and I have no idea why. It was working so beautifully and perfectly for, the 2 hours I was mowing the lawn a couple weeks ago, and now it just won't start. So I don't know what's going on there. I decided, what if the spark plug actually is dead now? So I tried ordering the correct spark plug. Hopefully that's it. It would be sad if we had to order a new lawnmower after I was so proud of myself for fixing this one. But anyway, so we got the first batch of people over here, friends from Brooklyn who traveled all this way up here to see our house, many of whom had not seen the house before. That was fantastic. We started hanging out, laying out the food, set up everything on the deck here, big bucket of drinks and beer, and I went to the local beer outlet and got like a nice big jug of Captain Lawrence, like a special, summer brew kind of thing, so that was kind of on draft, on tap. And then we had, Rolling Rocks, just some cheap canned beer. I got a bunch of Magic Hat, some different beers that we'd accrued, in the past, things like Angry Orchard and Samuel Adams. So I think there's a little bit of something for everyone there. Liz made some amazing desserts. My cake ended up being a chocolate Darth Vader cake, which was a truly lovely surprise, and that tasted fantastic. Our friend Blake had gotten a recipe from Magnolia Bakery in New York and created this like blueberry cookie crust cake thing, which was fantastic. Other people brought actual cookies. There was like a Boston eclair cake from our friends Meredith and Chris. Liz also made pavlovas, which are a fantastic kind of meringue thing. I thought I hated meringues, but that was because I associated meringues with like lemon meringue pie, which growing up was like a standard cafeteria dessert, which was awful. But Liz's pavlovas are one of the greatest things in the world, and Morgan cut up a bunch of fruit for them, and Julianne decorated them, and those tasted amazing. Liz gave me a recipe on Friday night to make like a very simple lemon blueberry pie, which tastes fantastic. So we made 2 of those, and that was great. People brought over, you know, all manner of things. We had chips and a really lovely salsa, like an organic salsa from nearby, and we had a 3-bean salad, we had a lemon rice salad. When it got dark, we actually got the fire pit working, and that was beautiful and working really well. And we had our big cast iron grill, which is actually like a replacement cast iron grill for, you know, an actual barbecue thing. And we had that going over the rocks, and once we had nice enough embers, we cooked burgers. Morgan kind of like did a burger mix with onions and spices, and that tasted fantastic. We had some vegetarian or vegan friends, so we had like a soy chorizo thing going, and that tasted fantastic. We had hot dogs during the day, which people were able to roast before there were embers, because, you know, hot dogs cook fine over an open fire, so that was fantastic. Also during the evening we had grilled pineapple, which is fantastic. I think I've had that in the past, but I forgot how amazing that tastes, because you get some of the sugar kind of caramelizing, and then you get that kind of smoky flavor, and that tastes wonderful. A couple pies our friends Beryl and Julianne brought that Liz and I actually didn't get to eat because people loved them so much and they just got wolfed up, was like a beef pie and like a veggie ricotta pie, so those sounded really great. But yeah, people brought all sorts of great things, and that was fantastic. The makeup of the guests was truly wonderful. Oh, also there was an amazing sangria. The sangria, so much fruit, such a perfect level of alcohol, it was to die for. I probably would have had the whole thing to myself if, you know, that also wasn't drunk up pretty quick. But the makeup of guests was fantastic. As I mentioned, we were going back to the train station a couple times to pick up guests from Brooklyn. We had a bunch of neighbors we hadn't met yet coming by, and that was really sweet. We got to meet a lot of people, both on this side of the road, which we, you know, have gotten to know over the winter months because we're all the ones pitching in, you know, figuring out what to do about road maintenance, and then that side of the road, which I haven't, you know, met a lot of people down there. I just put a bunch of invites in their mailboxes because I didn't have their email, and a few of them came, so it was really lovely to chat with them. And then also a few people from my office came up. They didn't RSVP, but they just drove over, and that was really cool. One of them drove all the way from New Jersey, Cranford, New Jersey, with his kids and his wife, and they're fantastic, and it was really cool to see, you know, these 2 little redheads running around our property and kind of getting a sense of what the scale will be like when we have that size person in the house. And Jeff, you know, kept pointing out, like, see what he's doing there? The way he's like putting his head in like the laundry vent? That's the kind of stuff that you need to be thinking about when you're baby-proofing your house. Like anything that's at that height, you know, that a baby can move or get into, they're going to try. So, you know, that was very educational and nice. And he volunteered to send us a list of ways our baby will try to kill itself in our house. So, you know, it's really helpful to have people looking out for us as we approach, you know, we're past now the 3-month mark, where we're getting closer to like 2.5 months until our baby is coming. So that's really exciting. And I tried to get music going out here because my brother left an amplifier here with kind of a loose cord, so the music was kind of on and off, but I was playing that on my Kindle Fire with the Amazon Prime music. But I really feel like everyone had a great time. Like I tried to do my best to try to mix and match people, like, oh, you know, you do stuff with props, you do stuff with props, you two should talk. And anyone that I had ever brought up to anyone before that happened to be here. I did the same thing at our wedding. Like, I'm very conscious of what it's like to be at a party where you don't know many people, and so I really wanted to try to establish, you know, icebreakers for people wherever I could. And, you know, we had people hanging out by the fire, we had people playing soccer and women's lacrosse and bocce ball, and just kind of hanging out everywhere, and it felt very lively and exactly what I was looking for. And then, you know, by the time the party started to thin out around 8 p.m. and people were going home and we were dropping people off at the train station, then we just came back and we hung out around the fire, and it was me and Morgan and Ian and Lindsay, who had actually lost her and Ian's dog Bonnie during the day, but was found, so thank God for that, and Blake and Becca, and then our friend Alex Araski, who we told, like, you know, he'd been to our house, he'd house sat for us before for like days at a time and refused to take any money from us, like sweetest guy in the world. And he actually had another party to go to in New Jersey that day, and he's like, oh, I really want to like rent a car and come up and see you guys. And I was like, dude, we've seen you plenty, we love it when you're here, but do not rent a car, like we'll see you next time we can. And then I got a message from him around 7 p.m. where he's like, I got a car, I'm coming up. And I'm like, oh, you poor guy, like, I mean, that's amazing, we're so excited to see you. So he arrived, you know, pretty late into the night, and we got to hang out with him for a few hours. And oh, we also played like Dominion, which was really nice, just with a few people. And there were all these different groups of people all kind of chatting and getting to know each other. I love that kind of thing. When I was a kid, by the way, when I first started going to St. J Academy in Vermont, right away when I was meeting people at my new high school, I was like, you would be really friends with this person from my middle school. And so one of the first things I did was, whenever I could have a party, like a birthday party, just like what I did this year, whenever I could have a party like at Indian Head Resort, I tried to bring together as many different friends from as many different groups as possible and tried to get them to interact. So I love that kind of thing, you know, introducing people from different parts of my life and making this connection. So that makes me really happy. Anyway, Alex Zarowski was here for 3 hours before we all went to bed. And then he left in the morning before we had to leave because he had to get this van back. He drove here in a van all the way from Brooklyn. So, you know, we have some very sweet friends and had a really lovely time. And then, you know, once everyone was gone, I had to get to work on my VR stuff, so Sunday was crazy, and I felt bad because Morgan was hanging out the whole day, and I really wanted to play Seven Wonders with him, so that would have been really nice. But alas, no time. Even though in retrospect, I probably could have done that since we didn't end up doing anything with the VR stuff on the Monday after anyway. Such is life. A couple other car things, because of a Nerdist podcast I was listening to where the sponsor was Automatic, which is the thing you plug into your car and it tracks, you know, your mileage and your driving habits, but also tells you things like why your check engine light is on. It's apparently, you know, pretty much the same thing that mechanics get to plug in to figure out why check engine light is on. But they had a promotion where instead of $120, you could get it for $80. So I was like, that sounds really useful because my check engine lights are always on. So that was really a cool thing to install, and turns out, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why the check engine light is on for both the Mazda and the Pathfinder, but it's kind of nice to have that information and being able to Google it and figure out more about, you know, why that is. And I like to imagine that someday both Liz and I will know enough about our cars that, you know, maybe 50% of the time where something's wrong with it, like we can just fix it ourselves. Like right now we know that the engine coolant for the Mazda needs to be changed, so like we can do that. And then, you know, something like the muffler, like, I mean, right now it just kind of rusted and fell off, but it'd be kind of cool to be like, oh, we totally replace a muffler, you know, sometime in the future down the line. That'd be kind of cool to be able to do. Car thing right now, I'm just going to say that I'm kind of, you know, it's interesting being in this place right now where, you know, we have a baby coming and we want to have a safe vehicle, at least one. We need 2 vehicles, but at least one of them should be like a baby safe vehicle. And so right now it's looking like we're going to do whatever we can to keep the Pathfinder going because we know it can handle our road during the winter, and that's a big plus. The Mazda can't, so we kind of have to sell it or figure out what to do with that. And then it's like, okay, how do we get another car? You know, obviously any money we have saved right now, we really want that to be able to be used for the baby, so we're looking at stuff we haven't looked at before, like, oh, what's it like to get a car loan? And it's like, oh, look, you can get these really low rates. But that's if you're getting a new car. And it's like, okay, well, what's the rate when you're getting a used car? And then how does that compare to, you know, the maintenance costs if you're buying an older car but then can buy it just outright? And so, I mean, I think we're leaning toward trying to get a car loan with an older car, hopefully to get this Subaru Forester, because our friend Dan has always driven on our road with a Subaru, and it seems to handle the road fairly well. So the idea is to have 2 cars, at least one of them be very baby friendly, so that can be the one where, you know, we never feel like there's anything in danger there. And both of them we want to be able to handle the road, and we want one of them to be kind of a heavier, like SUV car, like the Pathfinder, which we'll probably be keeping, and then the other one we want to be better on mileage if we're, you know, going up to Vermont or something like that, because 15 miles a gallon really hurts you on gas, and it's nice having the Mazda right now during the summer because, you know, I'm driving that to work every day, parking at the Peekskill train station, you know, only putting enough money in the meter to last until when I know that the meter maids come by, so that's been pretty cheap. And then I've only had to refill it once every couple weeks, whereas Liz, who travels about the same distance as I do to work every day, has to refill the Pathfinder pretty much once a week, even though it's a bigger tank, because the mileage is just so much worse. So, you know, it'd be great if we can keep the gas expense down if we can. But yeah, there's that interesting question of, if you're buying a newer car, of course, it costs more, but the maintenance is going to be a lot less because there's nothing wrong with it yet. You know, both of our cars right now, we got incredible deals on them. One of them we got for free, one of them we got for $1,200, but we've already spent, you know, much more than that money many times over maintaining it and trying to get it up to snuff, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and we don't feel super safe in them. So, you know, that's an interesting quandary, if you will. A few more quick house things, rapid fire. First, we got a Chromecast. I've spent so much time, you know, trying to make our whole, like, media entertainment area as accessible as possible. You know, we use the PlayStation 3 for streaming files remotely that I've downloaded from my computer and from Netflix and for Amazon Instant Video and for playing video games. And then if there's something like on my dad's Xfinity account that I want to be able to play, we usually plug in an HDMI cable with the laptop and have that go into the TV, and then we'll watch it through there. And all that's fine, except a lot of times, you know, there's a lot of shows I watch where I want to be able to do something else while I'm watching it, but if I have something plugged into the laptop and it's playing, then I can't really use the laptop. Also, the cable, you know, kind of gets in the way, and that's awkward to do. And, you know, I've been having such a great time using Chromecast in my office. I was like, man, it'd be really nice to just get a Chromecast. And over the past few weeks, I've been like, you know what, it's $40. Just get it. Get it. It's totally worth it. Worth the convenience. It's a really useful tool. And then I think like a week and a half ago, Groupon had a special where it was like, oh, Chromecast for $20. So I was like, yes, perfect opportunity. Got that, hooked that up, since I've hooked up Chromecast 50 times now between my office and the Opera America conference and, you know, for other people. So I'm really glad we have that now, because that means we can stream things from my phone and from the computer, and I can just be streaming stuff from a tab in the laptop and be working on stuff elsewhere. So, you know, Chromecast is a really fantastic tool, totally worth $20. Glad we have that. Other stuff today, just all stuff that happened today. My wife and I decided to check out a local church, which was really cool. There was a pancake breakfast going on, like raising money for the local, you know, youth group, and everyone was so friendly. Like, we got there and everyone could not have been nicer and more welcoming. And who are you? And how did you find us? And oh, that's, you know, so interesting. You're such interesting people. And just getting to chat with them and get to know all these other people. And there's so many kids there, and they've got, you know, these cool programs. They do stuff like Habitat for Humanity. They've gone down to you know, do like Hurricane Katrina relief and all these civic engagement projects, which, you know, for me, religion at its best is people taking the Bible and Jesus's teachings and all that, and seeing basically the, you know, do unto others as you would do unto yourself, and also be kind to everyone else, help everyone else, be a good person. And religion at its worst is the people feeling more righteous than other people and looking down on others, and obviously at its worst, killing other people because their God isn't quite the same as the other God. So it was really kind of nice to start exploring some of the religious community. What's interesting is the church we went to is in the Garrison area, where of course everyone there has children who are going to the Garrison school, which is much smaller than the school that our children one day would be going to, because there's this weird kind of gerrymandering thing going on in our town, where even though we're only 10 minutes away from the Garrison school, our kids have to go to this other much larger school that's like half an hour away. So that's all kind of interesting. But the church was really lovely. The sermon was about Jesus and the mustard seed, kind of a classic one. By the way, just a quick religious thing, because I don't think I've talked about it at all on this before. I myself am spiritual, but I haven't practiced organized religion since I was a kid. I went to Catholic school, I was confirmed, I was baptized, all those things within a Catholic community. Church growing up did not do a lot for me. The sermons were usually an hour and a half. I found them very boring. I didn't get involved with any kind of youth group things. I didn't feel like I had a real community there. Church for me never felt like anything but a boring lecture with kind of a boring teacher. And so unfortunately my experiences with that didn't amount to much, and I haven't had much desire to go back to church since, you know, I think maybe I was 13 or 14, where my parents kind of said, so guys, do you want to keep doing this on Sundays? And I think my brothers and I all said, no! And so we didn't. Liz had a much more positive experience with church growing up, and she really likes the church that, you know, she goes to in her town. But then there's some issues with, you know, belief systems, and, you know, some of the church groups that she's more familiar with that still have some problems with homosexuality and things like that. So that becomes kind of tricky. And so there's an interesting question in this day and age, where how do you decide, you know, if you want to go to church and you want to be part of a community, how closely do their views need to align with your personal views for you to feel like that is a positive experience? So all that's very fascinating to me, and you know, I hope that we find a community around here that we feel comfortable going to, and you know, there's all sorts of great programs with that. They do things like, they have like a nursery for children while you're at church and for a few hours, and the idea of being able to, one day when we have, you know, maybe several kids, being able to be like, oh my god, we can drop off our kids at church and then go have like a brunch or something for a couple hours would be really exciting. And again, at its best, that's what church is to me, is a community of people that support each other and want to do good things and find great civic engagement projects to work on. So, you know, I'd be totally open to being involved with something like that, and we'll see what the future brings there. When we got back from church, it was really hot out and quite beautiful, so we thought, hey, this is a great time to go check out that waterfall again. Back in August, when we first moved into the house, our neighbors had told us that there were a couple waterfalls up near Cold Spring, so we went out to check out the one that was more accessible. One of them you kind of have to go down like a very steep hillside, and parking was kind of difficult because of the Audubon Society, but we lucked out and someone was leaving like right when we got there, so we parked and we went over and hung out, and I got in the water and tried to get Sadie to go in the water, and she hates the water, so she wouldn't. but that was really nice. And even just, you know, the way the river there cools the air, it was just really comfortable to hang out, and the waterfall's beautiful, and a bunch of people came by, and it was a really good time. And then as we left, we saw that people had totally disregarded the Audubon Society's, you know, rules, and were parking in all sorts of places that they weren't supposed to. So, you know, we were there being like, oh, well, I guess we're gonna have to park far away, or, you know, something like that. And then we got lucky that someone left, and everyone else was like, blah, screw this, we're parking everywhere. But anyway, it's really cool to have like a nice swimming hole nearby, because I think Liz and I talked a lot when we were in Brooklyn about how much we missed, you know, when it's a hot day, being able to be like, let's just go jump in a river. And you can't really do that in Brooklyn unless you're going to be swimming in the East River, the Hudson River, which would be gross. So I think we're both very grateful to have just, you know, a spot in the middle of the forest not far away that we can go do that in now. Last but not least, the other house thing I wanted to work on today was sleeping in the house. You know, we try to keep our cats out of the extension in our house, because it's like a nice clean area, and it's great for when we have people coming over who, you know, might be allergic or anything like that. And so we basically shut them out on the other side. And lately we've actually been sleeping in that side because there's an air mattress in there that is much more comfortable actually than our mattress, which is kind of interesting that, like, you know, a $50 air mattress could be a lot more comfortable than a real bed. The only thing that makes me sad about that is, you know, we can bring Sadie in there, but we don't want to bring the cats in there for a number of reasons, the least of which being that they could pop it. So that meant that, you know, I've had a lot of these late nights lately, and I get home and I see our 3 cats for 5 minutes, and then I go to bed, and then I leave first thing in the morning, and then don't see them again until 10 o'clock that night. So we're trying something really interesting that I just did, which was to take the air mattress out of the extension and bring it into the normal part of our house, and basically plop it on top of our mattress, and like kind of cross our fingers and hope that our cats won't pop it. So we'll see if by episode 20 I'm telling you like, we're getting a new mattress, or we're going back to sleeping in the extension. But I kind of like, you know, waking up and finding that, you know, one of my cats had like curled up on my tummy or something like that and was purring. That's really happy and a nice way to start the day. So we'll see how that goes. A lot of house stuff. Thanks for listening. Blah. Also, a quick thing for my wife and I's 3rd wedding anniversary, which was June 2nd. I was thinking for a while of something interesting to do for that, and for the present, I thought it would be interesting to do something for the future. And I got the idea actually from a Hyperbole and a Half comic where Allie Brashu, who writes the comments, had dug up a letter that she'd written to herself like when she was much, much younger. And I think at first she was thinking like, oh, this is going to be like really cool. What was I interested in at that time? And like all the questions were just about dogs, and then it had this like weird thing at the end that was like, please write back. And it was kind of disappointing for her. And I thought like, that's a really cool idea to have like a letter to your future self. And that got me thinking, how cool would it be actually to send a future letter, not to myself, but to my wife? And you know, it's like we're kind of at this interesting precipice. I remember about a year ago, there was this moment where my wife and I were supposed to go see like a free movie, and then the line filled up, so we had waited in line for an hour, and we're like, no big deal, whatever, let's go for a walk. So we walked along the New York waterfront, and it was like right before things were going to either work or not work with getting this house. And it was just a really lovely kind of, you know, romantic walk around sunset, and we just talked about a ton of stuff, and that was really nice. And it was a great moment to like take stock of the moment of our lives. And I thought this could be kind of an interesting other version of that. It's a one-sided conversation, but for me to say, okay, here's how I feel about everything right now, here's where we are, here's where I hope we are, and yeah, to basically, you know, give my wife a letter on our anniversary that said, do not open until 2025, so 10 years from now. And I think about, you know, where I was 10 years ago and what our relationship was like 10 years ago, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating to like, if I had written a letter to myself 10 years ago, I can imagine some of the things I would have said, but other things, I mean, of course, it's tough to put myself back in those shoes. And after we have a child and more stuff is happening in our lives, and, you know, we're kind of growing into these new people, I think it'll be really interesting to be able to look back on something like that. So anyway, yeah, so that was an interesting present. Curious, maybe I'll post a video in 10 years and talk a little bit about what that was like. But kind of a cool idea. Give it a try. Wedding anniversaries. Cool stuff.